What's going on, guys? For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, the 8th entry in the Mission Impossible franchise. Was it good or did it utterly disappoint? That's what I want to get into here today. But listen, the reason this video is a couple of days late is because I've been in Los Angeles on a vacation. But listen, I'm super prepared today. I've even got my Mission Impossible popcorn bucket that I just purchased at the theater when I went to go see the film. I am a big fan of this franchise. The Mission Impossible movies, probably a top 5 franchise for me, and that's saying a lot because honestly I'm a big blockbuster guy. I really enjoy blockbuster films, so yeah, I love this series through and through. But did this series end on a high note, or was this film just a complete dud? That's what I will get into here. But listen, be sure to drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and also hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me if you want to stick around and talk about movies with me. But let's get into the review. Now, one thing that I do want to get out of the way before I actually talk about this film is the fact that this was my second most anticipated film of the year, right behind Superman. Again, like I just said, I love the Mission Impossible franchise, so I was really excited for this film. I love Dead Reckoning, the first film, of course, out of this like 2-part saga that we've been dealing with the Entity and Gabriel and all that. But did this film actually live up to the hype? I feel like that's what we're here to talk about. It's been really hyped. The trailers have looked awesome. Just to kind of like give it to you guys straight here, I thought this movie was pretty good, but I do think it has its issues. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, okay? I don't want to lie, and sometimes, honestly, it does take a lot to admit this. I will say that I am slightly disappointed. I'm going to be honest. I do think it's a pretty good film, but I am kind of disappointed, honestly, at the end of the day, which is okay, because again, I'm still positive on the movie for sure. And one other thing that I need to mention, I definitely need to rewatch it, because this is a film that is capping off a 30-year franchise. It's nearly 3 hours long. There's a lot of moving parts. Definitely need to give it a rewatch before I really solidify my rating, which I'm going to be giving at the end of this video, so stick around for that. As someone that makes videos, as you guys could tell, about movies, it's so much easier to just poke holes in projects like movies and shows than actually give them their praise. But I'm going to start off with the positives, then we'll dive into the negatives, because one thing I will say about the negatives before I actually just get into the positives, this is a film that I don't think has one clear major problem. Sure, some problems I think are worse than others. However, it feels like more of a situation where it's death by 1,000 cuts, where there's just a lot of really small problems rather than one major problem. But listen, let's get into the positives. First of all, this is just another solid entry into this franchise. From start to finish, it's a pretty good film overall. The story's intriguing, you get your action, you get your character moments, you get the same characters and even the new ones that, you know, are, well, I guess you could say they're kind of new, especially from like Dead Reckoning. You get more of them, and I think they did a pretty good job at closing up this franchise. We'll get into some of the negatives about that in a second, like I already said, but I think this is a pretty good conclusion to this 30-year saga. From there, when we get into like the Entity storyline and stuff, the stakes feel as high as they've ever been. I feel like the story here is pretty complex. There's a lot going on, for better or for worse, but either way, I really enjoyed some of the complicated little sequences that went on here. And also, Tom Cruise is just awesome in this. It's so clear that he cares. I love the side characters in here and, you know, just how they're interacting with him, especially because, again, this really does feel like the final reckoning for like the world, because there's like this massive threat in this movie, especially compared to the other entries. Now, of course, I've got to talk about the action, especially like the stunts and stuff. There's the one submarine sequence from the trailer, had my heart absolutely pounding. I think I liked that one better than the other one I'm going to be talking about in a second, but it's just so tense. It's so uncomfortable. You feel so alone because it's just Ethan in this submarine. It feels like he's going to suffocate. There's also cold because they're in like the Arctic. It's horrifying to watch, but also it's like watching a car crash. You just can't keep your eyes off of it, even though you don't really want to look. From there, we got the plane sequence. I like the submarine one a little bit better. It doesn't really matter, kind of just giving my opinion, but the plane sequence, also pretty crazy. It kind of reminds me of the one to kick off Rogue Nation, where he's hanging on the side of the plane. But of course, this one's a bit elevated because it's like these biplanes and he's jumping across them and stuff. It's wild. It also reminds me of the end of Fallout, where there's also 2 helicopters in that one, and he's kind of trying to get onto the other one. It's sort of similar to the ending of Fallout. It's awesome. It's super tense, and of course, the practical magic just never gets old. I absolutely loved the stunts, and I thought they were pretty cool. From there, I feel like you never really felt the runtime. This movie is almost 3 hours long, and honestly, it flies by. I feel like it feels like a movie that's like 2 hours and 10 minutes when it's closer to like 2 hours and 50 minutes, which is a massive compliment because there's just so much going on at all times. It doesn't really get boring at any points. Maybe things get a little bit confusing, but we'll talk about that in a minute with the negatives. But again, this is just a super solid entry into this franchise. Is it the best? Unfortunately, no. Is it the worst? No. I just think it falls somewhere in the bottom half of the franchise, I would say. I do have a franchise ranking video, though, for the Mission Impossible movies coming out pretty much like when this video is dropping, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the film overall. Just from start to finish, it's like your standard Mission Impossible film. But that might be for better or for worse, because I really want to dive into the negatives that I have with this movie. And again, I liked this film. I need to make this very clear. I did enjoy this movie, but I have a lot to say about the negatives because I feel like they're just kind of interesting and they really stand out in comparison to the other Mission Impossible movies, because I think this film has some issues that the other ones, especially the past couple where they've just been on fire, don't have, like Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout, and Dead Reckoning. Feels like just this movie has these problems. So where do I begin? I know that I said my issues that lie with this movie are more just a bunch of smaller ones that are more spread out, but there definitely are some larger problems, so I want to start off by talking about those. The first one, and this is the one that kind of bothered me while I was watching the entire film, is that this movie feels like it's missing its clever charm. What do I mean by that? I feel like this film is actually the most complex story in the entire franchise. Out of all 8 movies, there's the most going on in the 8th film. There's this team doing this over here, this team's doing this, there's a side character over here doing his own thing, there's another group over here, and then this group is trying to come after this group's coming after this group. There's so many moving parts, very complex, which is very interesting. But at the same time, it's simultaneously the most straightforward story in the entire franchise. I feel like with some of the other Mission Impossible movies, well, all of them, they all have this clever charm where it feels like the writers are one step ahead of you. I feel like this movie, I kind of just knew where it was going to go. I guess you could say it's predictable, and not like in a sense that, oh, the good guys are going to win. I just meant it felt like I kind of just knew where we were going next, and then we just got there. There wasn't really any, fake outs. There wasn't really any, clever set pieces. They're all pretty straightforward. And to compare it to a scene that I think is extremely clever, for those of you that have seen Ghost Protocol, the Burj Khalifa scene, unbelievably clever. You've got the 2 different floors where you've got the buyers meeting the sellers or whatever, but they think that they're meeting each other, but they're actually not. Benji has the fake hand, and then he's reaching for the diamonds and stuff. There are so many little moving parts. There's the nuclear launch codes being printed out. Jeremy Renner's character, Brandt, has an eye, a contact lens that's scanning codes and then printing out nuclear codes. I know that it sounds like I'm just saying a bunch of random stuff, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But there's so many little intricate moving parts, and it feels like the entire plan could go wrong at any second. There's masks involved. There's things going haywire that's messing up their plans, but they're kind of just going through with it. But this movie, it feels like every sequence is just straightforward. And again, the story is complex, but it's still very straightforward on a scene-to-scene basis. There isn't some crazy mask reveal. There isn't too many complicated things going on. It's kind of just more of a typical action movie, I guess you could say, in a way, which is fine because the action's awesome, but it bothered me a bit. And another major problem that I had with this movie, I know that I said there was a lot of problems, we'll get into that in a second, but another major problem that I had with this movie, and I don't really know how we got to this point because Dead Reckoning had a similar problem, but they worked it out, is that there's too many characters in this film. Dead Reckoning, I feel like, set up a lot of characters for this movie, and now that we're in this film, I'm just wow, there are way too many cooks in the kitchen. You've got Ethan Hunt, Benji, and Luther. That's our solid core team. Then you've got Grace, Haley Atwell's character. She's new, she's fresh. Love her. That's awesome. Then you've got Angela Bassett, who's the president. Then you've got a group of people around the president kind of deciding what to do, kind of in the US. That adds 5 characters in, including Nick Offerman, who's a name, and Janet McTeer, who's another named actor and actress. Then we've got this little submarine group that features the guy from Severance, I forgot his name, and then Katie O'Brien, 2 more actors. Then we've got both of the cops from the past movie. Then from there, we've got the guy from the first Mission Impossible movie who was who was in the trailers, the guy that basically got the vault broken into. He was the idiot who made the mistake or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. He's in this movie, and his wife is in this movie. You've also got the villain Gabriel. I could go on and on and on. At the end of the day, there are way too many characters in this movie. And at a certain point, it feels like we're just lingering. I think a lot of these sequences would have been a lot better if there was just like a tight-knit group of like 5 heroes, but the problem is at all times, there's like 7 to 8 of them in the same room, and it's just way too overstuffed, and there's way too much going on. And not just that, I know that I said there's 7 to 8 characters in a room, but there's also multiple rooms that we're like bouncing back and forth from. There's like government offices where there's like 7 more characters. There's another thing going on here with the villains, the submarine. There's too many characters. I'm not joking when I say this. There's like 20 different heroes in this movie, like 20 different heroic characters in this film. There's too much going on. And I think the biggest offense in this movie, even though the character is like fine, is going to be that character that they brought back from the first movie and his wife. They show up for like a couple minutes somewhere in the middle of the movie. It's like, oh, clever callback. Then they stick with the team for the rest of the movie. And I was just sitting there like, damn, man, why are they still here? It was a cool little cameo or callback to the first film, but why did they stay with the team for the entire movie? It oversaturates things, and something that's really funny is that in the climax, and I'm not spoiling anything, one of the characters, and I'm not joking, this is like pretty much what he says, oh, well, there's like nothing for me to do right now. Yeah. That's pretty much an ironic statement considering that there really isn't anything for you to do right now because there's too many characters on screen. I know it seems like I'm being very frustrated right now, but it's just such like a simple fix to where like you could have just had some of these characters like either just, you know, not be included in like the main plot line, or they just come in, serve their purpose, then leave. But it feels like whenever we meet a character in this movie, they're just along for the rest of the ride. And by the end of the film, there's way too much going on and way too many characters. Another thing in here with Gabriel, the main villain, I feel like he was super threatening in Dead Reckoning. I feel like he was like this ghost. He had this mannerism to him where he was very serious and he's like, I am smarter than you. I know what's going to be happening in the future because of the entity. And I have like this massive, almost like superpower because he's like an unstoppable force because he's controlling the entity or he's working with the entity. In this film, I'm not even joking, he's almost like goofy. Like, it's almost like he's laughing, he's like cracking jokes, it's like he's trolling Ethan, I'm not even joking. There's a sequence where Ethan's like trying to kill him, okay, let's put it that way, right? Because he's the villain, that's not a spoiler. He's trying to like kill him, and he's kind of just like laughing. And Ethan honestly is getting closer and closer and closer to killing him, and for some reason he's still just like laughing and like trolling him. He's like, haha, you can't get me, you can't get me. And yeah, it's just weird, and I was just kind of confused. I was like, oh, but does this even really make sense right now? I have other complaints, but I don't want to be sitting here all day. I just think that it's the point of this movie feels very straightforward and very complex at the same time. There's too many characters. There's too many things going on. It feels a bit frustrating. Another thing that I want to mention also, I feel like structurally, even though I said this movie goes at a pretty rapid pace, this movie is structured pretty poorly because there are a lot of scenes of just talking. And I don't mean to sound like an idiot, like, oh, my brain can't handle conversations in movies. But I feel like the Mission Impossible movies have always had like their massive set pieces, like big action set pieces. And even in between the set pieces, there were like these little glue scenes, like little glue action sequences where they kind of stitch together the bigger sequences, just little action pieces. I feel like the glue isn't in this movie. So whenever we're waiting, quote unquote, for the next big action sequence, there's just no action happening. So we're kind of just waiting, conversations. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, since I said this is like the most complex story in the entire franchise, there was just a lot of words and word vomit going on. Oh, you know, the entity is doing this, which is leading to this and this. And I was kind of having like a hard time following along with what exactly was going on. I know I am going through a bunch of negatives right now. I enjoyed this movie at the end of the day. I am positive on it, but there still are a lot of things that I did not like, which is why I'm not giving it like the highest rating in the world. And I do need to rewatch it, granted, but still. There's also a lot of flashback sequences in here, especially in the first hour, that just feel pretty out of place, and it feels like they're kind of just holding your hand in a way that I just really didn't like, and it kind of made it feel like they thought that I was stupid or something, like, oh, I don't know what's going on, I haven't watched the other films, whatever. I get it, maybe if you've never seen a Mission Impossible movie before, that's fine, but for the first couple minutes, it made sense, but after that, we just keep doing flashbacks and flashbacks and flashbacks. And I was getting a bit frustrated with that. So yeah, that's going to be it, okay? I don't want to complain anymore. I think that I'm going to settle, if I had to give this film a rating, on a 3.5 out of 5. I know it sounds like I've been tormenting this movie. I'm going to be honest, I cannot give this film any higher of a rating at this point in time. If I rewatch it, maybe it'll jump up to like a 4 out of 5. Maybe I'll actually really like this movie. Some of my problems will start to become diminished. But at this point in time, I have a lot of problems with this movie. I feel like it's a mixed bag. It's your standard Mission Impossible movie, but I kind of just wanted more out of it. Even though it gave me a lot, I feel like it delivered that a lot to me in such a messy way. We got the biplane action sequence. We got the submarine stuff. We got this franchise capped off in a pretty incredible way. But I feel like it was just delivered to me in a mixed bag, literally and metaphorically. One other thing that I do want to mention, I'm just going to touch on it really quickly, is also the fact, and this is another complaint, I'm sorry, the fact that I don't really like this as an end to the franchise with the way, the last like 10 or 15 minutes kind of ends us off on. It's not really like some grand closure moment. It kind of just feels like the ending of any of the other Mission Impossible films where the characters are just together and that's about it. It doesn't feel like we're capping off this franchise. It just feels like they could actually do a 9th film, honestly. So I don't really know what's going on with that, but either way, it's a solid movie. I know I've been dogging on it. I just wanted to get those criticisms out of the way because I'm very conflicted, honestly, right now. So I just needed to kind of get these thoughts out generally. But yeah, it's a messy film. It's messy, but I did enjoy it at the end of the day. I think it's a pretty good movie. But again, it's just so much easier to talk about the negatives than the positives. Let me know what you guys thought about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.